Welcome to the Ghost Talkers podcast, the show dedicated to unsolved history and paranormal mystery. Each week, we delve into something new, from true ghost stories to conversations with psychics, authors, historians, and the dead. If you're scared right now, it's probably because you just listened to Ghost Talkers podcast.
Hi, I'm investigative medium Laine Crosby, here with my co-host, historian, and Ghost of Gettysburg author Mark Nesbitt, and you're listening to Ghost Talkers on ghostchannel.tv. Today we have a very special show for you. Our guest today is Dr. Katherine Ramsland. Katherine is an author, a professor, and a forensic scientist. She has a master's degree in forensic psychology from John Jay College of Criminal Justice, a PhD in philosophy from Rutgers University, where she taught for many years, and a master's in clinical psychology. Her BA in philosophy and psychology is from Northern Arizona University, and she currently teaches forensic psychology at DeSales University in Pennsylvania. She directed one of the Bar Clemente programs in the inner city, which assists people without means to get a start in college. She's also been a therapist, crisis counselor, and psychoeducator, as well as a professional writer. She's published more than 32 nonfiction books, 16 short stories, 2 novels, and 400 articles, and her work has been translated into more than 10 languages. Katherine has also written a biography of Anne Rice and Dean Koontz. She conducted a 2-year investigation of the vampire subculture in order to write Piercing the Darkness, Undercover with Vampires in America Today. Following that was Ghost, Cemetery Stories, and the Science of Vampires. She's written for the New York Times Book Review, The Writer, Newark Star Ledger, and Publishers Weekly. Katherine's background in forensic studies positioned her to assist former FBI profiler John Douglas on his book, The Cases That Haunt Us, and to co-write a book with former FBI profiler Greg McCreary, The Unknown Darkness. She's also written The Forensic Science of CSI, The Criminal Mind, A Writer's Guide to Forensic Psychology, The Science of Cold Case Files, Inside the Minds of Mass Murderers, Why They Kill, The CSI Effect, Inside Minds of Serial Killers, and most recently authored Beating the Devil's Game, A History of Forensic Science and Criminal Investigation, and Inside the Minds of Healthcare Serial Killers. Katherine also writes editorials on breaking forensic science cases for the Philadelphia Inquirer, as well as articles for Court TV's Crime Library, and right now she is consultant for the TV series CSI. Katherine has had a number of major media appearances, but if I listed those for you, we wouldn't have time to talk to Katherine today on our show. Welcome, Katherine. We're so glad to have you here today.
How you doing?
I'm okay.
Good. How you feeling?
I'm better. I figured that was from holding dogs with flea powder.
Never always put the flea powder on yourself.
Well, it wasn't my dogs. It was somebody else's dogs. Yes.
That's my philosophy.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So I'm better now.
Good.
Did you get fleas?
Did I get fleas? I didn't. I got powder apparently in my eyes, though.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Was all that you do with all the forensic stuff?
Yeah.
Get flea powder in your eye.
Well, it took me some sleuthing to try to figure out what happened, because it had happened twice in the same person's house, and so I finally figured it out.
Yeah, the luminol in the eyes is nothing, right? You're used to that.
Right.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking with us today.
I got some great questions for you, too, Katherine.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not so sure about that part. There's certain things I'll say publicly, and certain things I won't.
Hey, well, sometimes that's good in an interview to say, nope, I'm not touching that.
Yep.
The suspense kills everybody.
Catherine, I wanted to make sure I have a couple of things right. I know your website is KatherineRamsland.com, KatherineRamsland.com, and you are now teaching at DeSales. That is correct, right?
Yes.
You are teaching it.
Yeah.
Okay. And
in fact, I'll be chair of the department next year.
Oh, congratulations.
Maybe.
Wonderful.
I don't know if that's about congratulations or not yet.
Hold the congratulations.
But yeah, now I'm actually an associate professor. I got that couple weeks ago.
Wow, that's wonderful. So as far as the number, is that a number of books?
Right.
What you've written, that's probably has changed.
Yeah, it should be 33.
33. Is that? I know.
Actually 34, but that one won't be published till April.
Is that the Lehigh Valley Murders?
No, Lehigh Valley Murders is number 33, which will be published this fall, as will the True Stories of CSI, which is number 32, and then number 34, which is already written and ready to go, is about the 12. It's a Devil's Dozen, 12 cases of serial murder that changed forensic history.
Great.
Read that.
So 31 published right at this moment. 32 is already, I already have the reading copies, and then 33 is Lehigh Valley Ghosts or Murders.
So all 33. Wow. But then you just had one, The Devil's Den.
Yeah.
So that is, what is that one?
That's number 31.
31. If I put on my calendar and scheduled trips to the Barnes & Noble, I wouldn't even be able to sit in trips faster than you write them.
I'll tell you, the number of books is making me reconsider my career because I don't want to keep getting bigger houses. It's time to do something like movies or something where you can just keep DVDs around.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. See that big house next to my house? Yeah, that's my life. I built that.
File cabinet, yeah. Oh,
bye.
So it's not. I love the writing, but I don't like the books piling up.
Yeah.
How do you find the time? Have you discovered the secret of time travel or something?
I have an evil twin. That's
the only way you can get it done.
That's right. It's really just more that I just do it, and I don't. I subscribe to the philosophy of Nike. Just do it. And I don't really sit around wondering how I will. And I find that a lot of people do that, and I think, well, that's wastes so much time and energy.
Yeah, that's
just
true.
to think about all this stuff you have to do. I don't think about it. I do use lists. I list out each day what I hope to accomplish and what I need to accomplish, and I pretty much, live by that. So,
in fact, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Give me, because I'm fascinated by this, Catherine, as you know, because I live this kind of life too. Give me a day in the life of Katherine Ramsland.
There's no such thing. Every day is somewhat different because sometimes I teach, I do a lot of traveling, speaking, things like that. So there's not a typical day, but I typically get up around 7 and I get coffee and I start writing immediately.
And you have time to write in the morning then? And then,
always.
When are your classes?
My classes I schedule in the middle of the day or at night. I teach graduate classes at night, for example. So my best time to write is morning, and I get right on it. And I usually know when I wake up, I think through what are the things I'm writing today. And so I usually have a very good sense, a very tight schedule for what I need to do. I usually don't make it, but at least I have a sense of it. And I usually am obligated, like for right now, I have 5 books going with 5 different people. So I have obligations to other people, which is, that's a certain amount of accountability pressure right there.
Sure.
And so I know I have to do chapter 2 of this book and chapter 19 of that book and this proposal. And, so I know I have to do certain things each day. And then I'll take a walk always. I always walk for 45 minutes. At some point during the day, I always do that. I will work on clear my head and also get inspiration. That's where I get most of the inspiration for writing fiction. And then I will usually work on something on my house as a break, or I'll read something. and then or grade papers or do something different, because I believe that a change is as good as a rest. I think that's a saying I heard once, and I think that really works for me. If I really change completely what I'm doing, and then I can come back late afternoon to the computer and write again, then I'll write again in the evening, and I usually then will break at 10 o'clock, 9 or 10 o'clock, watch TV so that I can go to sleep, because I can't, and I watch TV till midnight, because I can't sleep if I write past 10 o'clock. So that's what?
So because you're still thinking.
Because I'm still thinking. I'm still very engaged.
Yeah.
So TV breaks it off, and I'll watch, Law and Order or something like that just to...
Not CSI?
Yeah, I do. I watch CSI. I watch Law and Order, Grey's. I'm a both mail and movie thing, so I watch movies constantly. I watch probably 4 movies a week, and that's the way I break away from writing.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, right away you get a leg up on me with only 2 hours of TV a day. I mean, I'm when you watch 6 or 7 or 8 hours of TV a day, you don't get like.
Now you can always say that's part of your work. Getting inspiration.
Don't give me an excuse.
Research for the ghost.
Please.
Yeah, there's always ways around whatever you're doing to say, this is part of my work when you're a writer.
That's true.
Even grocery shopping, you go, well, what brand should I have my characters buy or whatever.
Yeah. There you go. Lady at the deli shop there. Yeah, there's my
I must say I do feel as if I am on all day. I feel as if everything I do contributes to writing, and that I have a hard time actually doing something that I think is not related to my work, because I start feeling guilty, and pressure.
I know the feeling. Yeah. Yep, I know the feeling. There's an obligation, internal obligation that you have when you wake up in the morning that I got to get this done.
Right.
Some of it done, at any rate. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but something like, for example, I went to New York Friday to do something with a documentary maker, and I ended up walking off the set because they kept screwing around with me and wasting my time.
Uh-huh.
And so that was an entire day lost, because I ended up on the freaking bus for 5 hours in traffic. And at least I had stuff with me that I was working on.
Right.
I always do that, because it would have driven me crazy to have lost a whole day.
That's what you mean.
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
that doesn't sit well with me to be inefficient. And I know a lot of people, people call that workaholism and whatever. They can say what they want about it. I get a lot done, and I enjoy it. And so workaholic, okay, fine. I like it. It's working for me.
I had a doctor's appointment the other day. I took page proofs to sit in the.
Well, that's what I did. I would never go to a doctor without that. I would never, ever go to any appointment without a book or my work with me, knowing I will be sitting and waiting somewhere. Even if you don't touch it, you have it. So I think that's a lot of the secret of my success is I don't sit around spinning my wheels too much. Yeah. I mean, even the full 5 hours, I had 5 chapters of my novel, and there I was, and I sat for 5 hours sitting in this bus, and I did work.
A lot of people don't understand the degree of professionalism it takes to be a writer, because nobody's going to light a fire under you except you. And
right.
Everybody has their own technique, and I think after a while, you can't live without it.
Right.
Like you said, you took work with you when normally people would say, I'm going to sit in the bus and watch the world go by.
Exactly.
You can't do that.
I mean, there's another sort of philosophy that I use, and I get this sense from a lot of people that they think somebody's coming to help them through or open the door. Nobody's coming, and I know that. And if I don't create and build my opportunities myself and prepare for whatever may come, it's not going to happen. So I have always been of the philosophy that you sit forward on your seat, you don't sit back. and you get ready to launch for whatever may come. You are prepared, and if you're not, then you just wasted a big chunk of your life.
Yeah, very good, very good. Well, yeah, what 30? What did we say? 33 books now.
Mm-hmm.
Plus fiction too. You got the two novels, right?
Right.
That's Laine and I were talking the other day before, obviously, this interview, and we were saying, I was telling her what an incredible breadth of work you have. Everything from the literary biographies of Anne Rice and Dean Koontz
mm-hmm.
to fiction. I mean, this stuff gets pretty far.
Yeah. Plus movie reviews, book reviews, articles, short stories. Yeah. But the only thing I haven't done, I think, is poetry. No, actually, I did do one poem. Actually, it got published, but I don't. That's not my mode. But yeah, the thing is, when you're a writer, you write. You write. You don't limit yourself to a genre. You write everything because you have to keep remaking yourself in this career. You never. If you get stuck being branded, for example, and doing only one thing, pretty soon that thing's going to pass in popularity. You have to constantly remake yourself in writing. And so you take on every form that comes your way. Right. And pretty soon you've built yourself a nice portfolio that people go, oh, so, and they not only see your breadth of writing, but they see that you are able to be flexible and to take on a whole new project. And that's important.
So on a higher level, people looking at you and looking at your career, they look for that type of thing where you've spread your arms really far.
Absolutely.
And a lot. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's cool.
The two of you have both inspired me so much.
Oh, good.
What you've written in your life, I've been a corporate writer and a publicist. That's something that I don't think anybody really aspires to tell people, oh, I've been a corporate writer.
Yeah.
I've spent my life writing for other people, and, I'm making that transition now. But it's a very it's a field with no risk in it,
Right.
And being a writer for yourself, now that's a field with risk.
It's complete risk. It's risk on two levels. It's an entrepreneurial risk that you might spend a lot of time and make nothing, and it's a personal risk because you have to put yourself out there at all times.
Exactly.
That's true. You can't really hide behind the corporate logo or anything. It's
all about you.
The name on the cover of the book is Katherine Ramsland.
That's right.
And that's
it.
And that's huge. And anyway, you both are such an inspiration. You're such great writers. And Katherine, I have to admit something to you.
Okay.
And Mark was just about to tell you about our conversation the other day, and I have to admit something. Before we were scheduled to drive down to North Carolina a few months ago to meet Raymond Moody,
mm-hmm.
back when I thought you were going to have to be stuck in a car with me for 12 hours.
Oh, no.
I excitedly ran out to the bookstore to purchase your book, Ghost.
Uh-huh.
And that was, of course, knowing that I had a captive audience for 12 hours and I could ask you lots of questions. When I picked it up late that night, I saw that Dean Koontz's name was on the cover.
Right.
And I pick up the phone and I call up Carol and I said, did you know that Dean Koontz wrote a review for Katherine's book? And she said, because I know you as Mark and Carol's friend Katherine, who's a great writer and who writes lots of books and who's a forensic scientist. Because of what I do, that's how you were introduced to me. And Carol says, oh, yeah, they're friends. And can we talk in the morning, So as I'm doing my homework for this interview and doing all this research, I'm like, wow, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, I am sure that Dean Koontz is the one saying, Katherine Ramsland, she's my friend.
I'm sure that's not true, but thank you.
Katherine was telling me, Katherine's even been to Dean Koontz's wine cellar.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's how else she knows him. So.
Well, I wrote his biography, so I spent a considerable amount of very, very intimate time picking his brain, and, we worked together for 2 years and then remained friends, surprisingly. And, in fact, I just talked to him about...
After the book came out. That's funny. We remained friends even after...
Oh, it was funny, though, about Dean's biography. Most of it, he got to say yes or no on what I was saying, but not my interpretation. And we sort of had some argument over it because he said I made him sound weird. And I said, "You are weird, Dean." And then he had dinner once, and there was a table of psychiatrists who had read the biography. And they said, "Yeah, I think she got you right." and he admitted that to me. But yeah, no, we're very good friends. He's a wonderful, generous, and very funny man. So we laughed a lot during that process.
Well, and that's one point that you bring up, the psychology, because you are a psychologist and a forensic scientist and so many other things. I think that you're so multidimensional that you can write on so many different topics. How do you choose the topics that you write about?
They choose me. There's something, an experience I have called the quickening, where I'll be somewhere. Let's just say Greg McCrary's book, FBI Profiler. I was at a conference, sat through for 3 days. Greg comes on. I didn't know him. He comes on and does a presentation, and I immediately went, "This man has a book." Now, I've done that with others, and they've said no. So just because I have a quickening doesn't mean they do. so I've certainly had no, but I believe that you should always ask, because it's worse to walk away from something you could have had than to have someone say no. So I always ask. And so that became a book. I saw the work of James Starrs, who was doing these exhumations, and I collected newspaper articles about the various things he had done for several years. And then suddenly one came into Pennsylvania. It was an opportunity. I jumped in, met him. I wanted to write that book. So there's, of all the many, many things out there, not all of them will grab my attention, but when it does, it feels there's an organic, like a heat that comes. There's a beating heart to it that feels alive in me when I hear that, or I meet a certain person, or I read a certain topic. There's something that happens that makes my heart beat faster, and that's when I know. So I say the topic picked me.
Wow, that's great.
That's so neat, because I'm at this stage, I'm kind of, well, up to the last week, I'm kind of stuck in this thing with writing ghost books and field guides and everything. I don't mean to say I'm stuck. I'm not miserable in it or anything, but it's kind of what people want right now, and so that's what I'm writing. And what you're telling me is that actually you're displaying incredible courage, because to step out of that, it's basically saying, okay, I don't want any more paychecks from that area. I'm going to go out and try something else and see if I can make a paycheck out of that.
So it's hard to step out, in part because the publishing industry will pressure you, and your fans will pressure you to more of the same. But I call myself a serial enthusiast. When I fully immerse in a topic, and then when I'm done, and I can't stand doing it over and over again. It's just not in me. Yeah. And though the pressure's on, like you said, from your fans and your publishers, keep doing more of the same. I can't stand it.
That's part of what I find so interesting about you, Katherine, is your research methodology. And I think that this could really be called your passion. Because you put yourself into your research. You don't go to libraries. You probably go to libraries and do research, but you actually really put yourself into your research.
Oh, yeah, I love adventures. I'm Indy Annie Jones.
Right.
That's my nickname, Indy Annie. I love adventures. I love going out. Like when I got the book Cemetery Stories, the first thing I did was I went to Oaxaca, Mexico, to do the Day of the Dead for a week for all the ceremonies and whatnot. I'd much rather do that than read someone's book about it. Or I go to Scotland to look up historic things there. That, to me, is a lot more fun. And I meet characters, and characters make your books run, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. The interesting, weird, wacky, unusual, unique people are the ones the readers want to read about, and I want to meet them and I want to put their stories in. So, that for me is a lot more interesting than just going to the library and getting information.
Well, that's obvious with your book, Piercing the Darkness. I mean, that was chilling. I mean, that was scary, and I know from talking to you that you literally got scared.
I did, but let's not forget the wacky characters I met for Ghost.
Yeah, there were those too.
Got one of them sitting right there.
Guilty as charged.
And that for me was actually scarier than doing Piercing the Darkness, because I was scared of ghosts. And then, I met you, I met Rick, I met people who taught me how to do the equipment, and so that was a lot more fun than just reading somebody's book about it and reporting on it,
Well, that's true. Well, because there we were. I remember this. It's the first time I'd ever heard or gotten EVP. There we were out in the triangular field.
Yep.
It's dark.
Yep.
Nobody around except you, me, and the ghost.
And don't forget, it was December, so it was cold. There weren't even tourists around.
Right. And we started getting voices and noises and clicks and things like that over the recorder that we couldn't hear. And then it was, feet, don't fail me now. I got to get out of here fast.
But then, if you remember, you had a list of names, people who had fought there, and we went to that list while I held the recorder, and to one name we got, yes, sir.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was very exciting.
Great stuff.
Yeah. So you can't get that from just doing research. You got to go out on the field.
Exactly.
Now, Mark mentioned Piercing the Darkness, and that is where you submerge yourself into the vampire subculture, isn't it?
That's right, for 2 years.
For 2 years.
Yeah. They still call me to get me to parties. But like I said, once I'm done, I'm done. But yeah, that was fun.
I remember shortly after that was published, we had a signing. We invited a bunch of authors on Halloween, the Ghost of
Right.
and Katherine shows up, and of course she's got her cape and her contacts, which make her blue eyes black.
Black, yeah.
And her custom fitted fangs.
Yep.
And she came out of the dressing room and dressed like that, and I'm like, holy moly.
Oh, yeah, don't forget the tight velvet dress.
The tight velvet dress.
And the velvet boots.
I'm saying, yeah, and the boots. I'm saying, this is one sexy vampire.
Yeah,
that was fun, too, and all those clothes were tax deductible,
Forget that part of it, yeah.
Yeah, definitely shopped at Saks while I was doing the vampire thing.
Yeah. That was good. Of course, we had Charlie Adams there too.
That's right.
He was there, and we had a bunch of.
It was fun, and I met people, some of whom I became friends with, some of whom went by the wayside, and that's the case in a number of my books. The same thing with cemetery stories. Going to a funeral directors convention, for example, where 3,000 funeral directors were converging. So I expect to continue to do that kind of authorship in the future, but it will have to be on different topics.
Oh, I've got to read that one.
Oh, that one's, that was fun. That was very fun.
I'll reread it. I read it once, and I want to reread it again because I enjoyed the heck out of it. It was a very, very good book.
Oh, good.
And also, and of course, I just sent my cousin, who is a fan of, I don't know if you call it a fan, of serial killers. I mean, he's fascinated by the topic. And you virtually, you took the subject back to Roman times.
Right.
And, I mean, this is the most comprehensive study of serial killers ever. And it's the Human Predator. And it's a fabulous book if anybody's into that.
Now, see, that's a book that had an interesting start. I I was going to New York to meet my agent for lunch, and I had this notion that no one's ever written a history of serial killers. And I didn't know how he'd think of that, but lo and behold, he suggested it. It's like, now there's a convergence, a synchronicity. We both had the idea at the same time, and we came together, and it was like, well, how can I not do this? We both immediately, that's an idea that gripped me and him, and so, and I had no idea how, at that time, really the shape it would take. But I just knew no one had done this, and we can probably interest a publisher in it. But see, that's, for me, the interesting moments that say, there's the magical moments of writing that say, keep going, because that's too unusual not to notice.
But see, that's the tough part. I would venture to say, I know it happens to me. I get these ideas, and I'm like, wow, what a great idea. And usually it's watching TV at about 10 o'clock at night, 2 or 3 bourbons, and I write it down, and I'm like, the next morning is, I'm not going to do that. That's the dumbest idea I've ever had in my life. But you get these ideas and then have the wherewithal to complete them. And, I mean, that's so many people have great ideas about books.
Right.
How many people tell you that? Oh, I have this idea to write a book too, and they tell you the idea, but you got to go 1 foot ahead of the other. You know what I mean? And so the race is done, and that is the difference, I think, between someone like you with 33 books and an incredibly busy schedule that you have, and really people who are just kind of wannabe writers and everything. I'm not putting them down, but what I'm saying is that if any of them want to be like you, that's the way they got to do it. They got to start writing, and keep writing.
And I do get in the grip and stay in the grip of a project. My energy and my passion for it doesn't flag. And my agent actually made that observation once, that there's a uniqueness in my approach, in that I get married to a project, and I'm totally in love with it. And that's not true for most writers. Most writers find writing painful, and they have to slog through, and they will get it done. But I really have this sort of high when I'm in a project, and everything goes. I'll go to a vampire club at midnight in Manhattan all by myself. When I'm working on a book, I wouldn't do that under any other circumstances.
Right.
But when I'm in the grip of a project, I do have to see it to its end, and I will go places it takes me in ways I probably wouldn't do just in my normal frame of mind. But it does transport me.
You don't take your vacations in New Orleans at the Vampire Convention, right?
Well, when I was working on the book, I did, but now I don't.
But not anymore.
But I think there is a sense that it's an alternate consciousness almost while I'm in a project, and it's rare that I've written a whole book that bored me. I have done it. Usually I get that done in about a month because I can't stand it. Yeah. But it's because and here's the thing, it's not writing that's my bliss, it's learning. And when I'm learning something, I love writing it, and I use the writing medium to keep learning. If I'm writing something I already know, I'm bored, and I don't like doing it.
Got it.
That makes a lot of sense. That's something that you've mentioned, Mark, in a different kind of way, because you've told me, hey, don't tell me a story, because tell it to me, you're never going to get it down on paper. Write it down.
Well, that's true.
Yep.
That's one of the things.
It's an energy leak if you tell it.
Right. Yeah, exactly, and it's so easy. I mean, the professor once told me that. He says, the easiest thing in the world is you got some great ideas, and to sit down there in a bar and tell the pretty co-eds your ideas, and they're all excited, and they'll buy you a beer, and that's about it. Then they go home, and you wake up with a hangover, and you never write it. So keep the ideas bottled up inside and just let them come out.
Exactly. I will never talk about something I'm working on right now because I know that's fatal for the project.
Katherine, I know. You shut me out of ideas several times over the course of our friendship. And then later on, then I find out that you've completed a project, and it's like, oh, that's what she couldn't tell me about. So And I understand. It's fine.
Yeah, it has to be that way because I know well enough what happens. I watch it not just in me but in other writers. They get all excited and they start talking, and then they didn't go home and write because all that energy's out there.
Right.
You got to keep it inside and make it motivate you to write it.
Right. Well, this is another interesting thing because I guess I was kind of teasing you or at least bugging you for a couple of years now. I said, Katherine, you are, as far as I know, the foremost expert on forensics. I mean, now, and I asked you, why aren't you consulting on some of these programs like CSI? So do you want to?
Oh, I just did consult on CSI.
Good. That's what I wanted to get out of you.
Yeah, first of all, it's hard to talk about how Hollywood works. Mostly, it's about its context. So if you're out there, if you live out in LA, they'll want you to consult because it's easy access. They can bring you into the writer's room, but are they going to fly me from here to there? Well, no, they're not. So it's a lot about neighborhoods and people who know each other and contacts and connections, and so I build them. I wouldn't say I'm the foremost expert on forensics. I'd say I'm the foremost general expert. I have an array. I've covered all the bases, but certainly, like let's say Henry Lee. He's consulted on 6,000 cases around the world. He's the foremost expert, if anybody is. But I'm probably the one who's written the most. In fact, I've been told that by many people. I've probably written the most on the field of anybody. So that I guess gives me a certain amount of expertise. But consulting on the shows really requires that you know the people, and that means you have to somehow cross their paths. I happened to cross paths with one on a cruise to Alaska, just by chance. And so through that, I then got some CSI people over to a conference, and through that, I got to consult on a program. But it really, as in anything in publishing, it requires that you not just build your reputation and your body of work, but that you go out and meet people and get them to know that you're there and available and willing, and that's how you get that.
The networking, the old networking.
Visibility and networking, yes, absolutely. Yep.
Well, I have you to thank for your introductions. Thank you very much, Katherine. I'm very appreciative of the help you've given me, and I got an email back from Lee Laughlin, and he is very excited.
Yeah, he just emailed me last night and said that.
Oh, he is such a nice guy. He wrote me about his trip and
the
murder that he was working on.
Right.
When I read it to my husband, who had a queasy stomach, he had to...
That's a good one.
Don't read me anymore. I'm getting sick.
I know, totally. There's something sick about us. We're sitting here at midnight going back and forth about this dismemberment murder. But, yeah, he's a great guy.
We have to plug his blog. It's www.leelosland.com.
Yes. And he has a blog called The Graveyard Shift, and which is well connected.
Do some shameless self-promotion here and plug Katherine's, actually the most recent book that our publishing company, Second Chance Publications, published, which is Bethlehem Ghost.
Yep.
Which is doing very well. I mean,
it's doing very well. I had such a fun time writing that book. First of all, I got to know where I live a lot better than I did before. Did meet some strange characters, as usual, and it's really tremendous to be able to know where all these things took place and to know my history, because the whole point of writing that for me was to embed these ghost stories in the Moravian history.
Uh-huh.
It is such a wonderful book, and it's not, I think it's something that people will love no matter where they live.
Yeah.
Although it takes place in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I feel very fortunate to have been able to come up last November and lecture with both of you when you lectured on Bethlehem Ghost. And I know from personal experience, I was just captivated by your stories and your pictures.
Oh, thank you.
Something it was wonderful, and I think it's something that everyone would love to read.
Oh, yeah, and there's a lot of more generic information in the book, too, like thanks to Mark, who's always turning me on to new books. I talk about things like the Scully experiment, and I talk about the well-dressed ghost hunter, what's needed. So there's actually more stories and more information in the book than just local ghost stories.
And I love the style. I mean, we had talked about this because Carol, my wife, edited the book, and there's always the question, should we use contractions or not contractions? And Katherine writes using, the contractions, don't,
yep.
and we talked to her about that, and she said, well, that's the way people like to read me, and it really does make it a much more readable book.
And more writable.
And
so you're writing how you talk.
Yeah, it's very flowing, and you can pick it up, and before you know it, you're halfway through.
Yeah, I write all of my commercial books are like that. The only, I have a few academic books that I still do, and you're not supposed to write like that, and it's very difficult for me because it's too stilted, it's too dry, and I like the sense of conversational writing.
Well, see, that's why I got to get that this historian thing out of my system.
Yeah.
Everything is, use contractions. Everything.
Yeah, but your books are good too. I mean, they're very readable. I mean,
but they're a little different, a little more fun, than the history books that I've written. But
right.
At any rate, and then we have another book that is really just ready to come out, and that's the Lehigh Valley Murders.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Can't wait to get my hands on a copy of that.
Oh, yeah. Everybody that I've told it to is like, oh, my God, we got to. And I walk around at night looking for the murder houses and stuff. It's very spooky. Spookier than the ghost stories, in fact, I think.
Oh, heck yeah.
There are ghost stories involved in this?
There are. I mentioned some because some of the ghost stories that I'm putting Bethlehem Ghost, obviously, were from murder stories. So I have a little bit of overlap, but also I found a few more stories that had ghost stories attached that I didn't realize, that nobody realized because they were like old historic pamphlets that I found in archives in a historic center, and they did have ghost stories attached. So I do mention things like that as well.
Oh, can you give us a little preview?
Oh, yeah, the very first lynching was in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And it was in response to something that happened in Easton about a decade earlier. I think it was the lynching was 1880. In the 1870s, a guy in Easton, which is right next to Bethlehem, had poisoned his whole family, and then was tried. And then after he was convicted and given the death penalty, they decided, well, in fact, he was too insane to be executed. So then 5 years later, this other murder happens in Bethlehem. This guy who had the hots for a 14-year-old girl went in with an axe and killed both of her parents, and then went after her, and she fought him off. So the citizens decided, well, we're not going to let this guy get off the way the guy over in Easton did, and so they strung him up on a tree. That was the first lynching in Pennsylvania. And that tree, and right after that happened, the citizens all came and stripped the tree of all its branches and bark. They cut it for souvenirs, because those are the days when people took souvenirs from murder sites. Right. And so the tree, with no limbs, no branches anymore, stood there, and the tree was haunted, as well as the murder house, which is right next door to the tree.
Wow.
So, yeah. There you go.
Great stuff. Great stuff. I love it.
Interesting.
Love it.
I didn't know people took souvenirs from murder sites.
Oh, my God, yes. That used to be the big thing. All through the 1800s and into the early 1900s, people would just took whole houses apart to keep mementos.
Wow.
Yeah, it used to be a big thing.
I know when they executed Lincoln's conspirators, they passed out pieces of the rope.
Oh, yeah. And we in fact have a collection of hanging ropes in our historical society here, one of which broke when the guy, and then he had to sit and wait until they could get a better rope because it was too thin. But yeah, they do that, or they've skinned people and made wallets and lampshades out of them. And we had another one that was a dismemberment murder of a pig farmer. I guess it was a jewelry salesman, so he killed him and beheaded him and dismembered him and buried him under the floor of the pig barn and put new cement over. And I love this one. So this other farmer who's supposedly psychic tells the police he saw that the body's under the pig floor. I think he saw the guy pouring the concrete. Actually, anyway, so they find the new concrete, they dig it up, and they find the body parts. And the initial news reports went out, and people converged on this farm and just picked it clean. It clean.
Wow.
Yep. In those days, there was no protection of crime scenes.
I was talking to Catherine in the morning about dismemberment and beheadings, and I'm really glad I skipped breakfast.
Yeah, I always have my serial killers class at lunchtime, and it's kind of fun watching them turn green. Yeah.
That's great.
Gosh.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to the Lehigh Valley Murders book. We're publishing that as well, and
right.
And I mean, if there's ever an end to it, every time we turn around, Catherine's calling us up and saying, "I just got another murder for the book."
I know it. It's just there is an end to it. I finally decided, okay, that's it. I've stopped looking, and I know that there are more, and I know that people are going to tell me more. But in fact, I have ideas for other towns now.
Oh, great. Well, there's always Volume 2. You know?
There's Volume 2, but Volume 2s usually don't sell as well as Volume 1s, except obviously for your Gettysburg Ghost collection. But there are other towns that have had lots of murders associated with them, and there's always that possibility too. Yeah. I'm recreating myself yet again.
I was going to say, any ideas? What's next?
I don't know. Or if I did, I wouldn't tell you. If I did say, I'd have to.
I know you wouldn't. Yeah. Well,
I do have ideas what's next, but I wouldn't dare say.
All right. It sounds like you need a trip to an exotic place so that you can have the quickening.
Yeah. Well, those things are in the works.
Great. Great. Wow, you're so mysterious.
Yeah, that's the trick to all relationships, isn't it? Keeping some mystery.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh gosh.
I can't think. This has been great. It's been so much more. I mean, I've known Catherine for years and years and years, but this is really, we're concentrating the ins and outs of writing here, and to talk to another author like this is really great. I mean, I learned something today. This is really good, Catherine. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, writers are reclusive, but when they get together in contexts other than conferences or something, but like, for example, just hanging out in the Chesapeake or something and just talking about the issues that come up, or what you're struggling with, or how to get more ideas, or how to recreate your career. These are things that we rarely get to do, and they're really wonderful to do. They're always growth enhancing. They're always inspirational, and so I mean, I think that's one of the secrets to the longevity of writers' associations with each other, is that because it's so rare to be able to talk about the things you're alone with all day, every day. Those opportunities are really golden.
Laine, what Catherine's talking about is she's been down to the house here a couple of times, and of course, one time she was finishing Bethlehem Ghost, and she's out on the dock with her manuscript. She was out there 4 or 5 hours going through this manuscript. It was really great. And then the last time she was here, we sat with our morning coffee on the on the porch, on the screened-in porch. It's like a two-person writers' conference.
Yeah.
Going back and forth with ideas and thoughts and encouragement on our careers, because it's tough. We're kind of out there alone.
Right.
You don't get a lot of encouragement, and I was always told, in psychology, and you can back me up on this, Catherine, is that the the less intelligent a creature is, the sooner it needs its reward, okay?
Right.
And so you would assume that, well, if you're a writer, you take 6 to 8 to 10 months to write this thing, and then it's another year before it comes out, and it's another 6 months after that before you get your royalty check.
Right.
Now, you can say either writers are the most intelligent creatures, or right at all.
Or they just don't get it.
Most people can hardly stand to go 2 weeks without a paycheck. There we go, years.
Yeah, there's something about writers that keep just bumping their heads against the wall, and they don't seem to understand. There's a way not to do that.
And we think we're so smart, yeah.
Right. But the thing is, the reward is in the writing.
That's true. It is.
You know, like there's a lot of things I've done for free. I did movie reviews for a while for free, just because I so love movies and it was so fun to write reviews.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes it's all about finding that thing that keeps feeding your soul. You know, and not worrying about the money.
I said it before. I said, please don't tell my publisher this, but I do this for free.
Yeah, I know.
Don't tell anybody.
But, you know, but I also have turned down books that I thought got such a low advance that it was clear the publisher would not put any commitment into it, and I wasn't interested enough in it to write it. I mean, so I've actually, even though I've done some things for free, I've turned other things down for money because I knew it was going to be a drudge and they weren't going to be involved, and it was just going to be basically a waste of my time.
Right.
But you're balancing good business with your passion, too.
Yeah. So. I'm trying. You know, every day is a new day. I could make mistakes or I could make bad decisions and get myself trapped in, you know, some project, and those things are always possible.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I, you know, frankly, I have written whole books and a number of proposals that went nowhere. I've certainly done my share of writing that sits on my shelf that no one's ever seen. And I know that that's still my future because that's the nature of the business.
That's part of it, absolutely. Yeah. That's part of it.
And you feel that, you know, the older you get, the more you know the time is limited and you feel it, that you've just spent a considerable amount of time. So if you don't love it, you just did yourself a real disservice.
I'm having a lot of trouble because I'm so pulled between my kids and the business and everything, and I get into a rhythm, and then, you know, I'm playing chauffeur all night and sort order cook and, you know, other things, and then I'm just completely wiped out after fighting about bedtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you need a little alcohol in that equation. Not for yourself either. Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't have the typical time-consuming things that most people have in their lives. You know, I don't have kids. I don't have relationships. I don't eat much. So lots and lots of energy and time that go into daily living for most people I have to spend on writing. And a lot of people look at my life and go, oh, you must be so lonely, or, you know, why don't you want the normal things? And the fact is, I had them. I like this better. That's just the way it is for some people. I don't aspire to a normal family life.
I would be completely happy with your life. I'm completely happy with my life, but I totally. I mean, I love to write, and I understand. I think you have a wonderful life.
I do, but I also see that I don't have access to a lot of experiences that people have. Like, I don't, you know, holidays go by, I'm writing, other people are hanging out with their families. There's things I miss out on too, but I don't think of it as, oh, I'm so lonely or anything like that. That doesn't even occur to me. Though people look at my life and they think that, and that's you can be lonely in a relationship too, and mighty lonely, and I've certainly experienced that. And yet, I guess I have come to terms with the isolation of writing and the demands of, if I could say art, I don't know that I'm really an artist, but the demands of an art form that require a lot of immersion. I've come to terms with that and have found enough reward in it, apparently, to not worry about, having what other people consider as normal.
Well, let me tell you, on the flip side, I envy your life. I really do. I mean, I really want to be able to sit down and be quiet and write.
Yeah.
I'm bombarded with noise.
Yeah.
90% of the day, and I'm being pulled in a million directions, and I feel incredible guilt when I'm doing, no matter what I'm doing, I'm feeling guilt. I should be giving more time to my kids. I should be giving more time to writing. And it's tough. It's
Yeah.
the whole mother-work dichotomy, and all the pieces are up in the air.
Yeah. And I understand that, and it is important, and especially if you have a gift like you do, you actually do have to find that time to be alone and to cultivate it, and I can imagine that would be very difficult for you not to be able to pursue that.
I am thrilled that you were able to come on the show. My friend Katherine Ramsland, I can say. With my friend Mark Nesbitt.
I tell you, I'm sorry I didn't get on that 12-hour drive down to North Carolina. I wish I could have, because I thought that would have been the most fabulous, amazing trip of that van full of people with such diverse talents and perspectives. I thought that would have just been awesome.
We would have had, Rosemary Ellen Guiley, Katherine Ramsland, Laine Crosby, possibly Julie. Mm-hmm. We're talking, I would have paid money to be on that trip.
Yeah.
Carol is the facilitator and moderator.
I know. I thought it would have been fabulous, and I was very sorry to have missed it.
Of course, I probably couldn't have handled all the bathroom breaks all the way down, but
you're stereotyping. In my experience, men take more than I do.
That would have been neat. Well, maybe we'll get together here sometime.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, that's what we should do, is converge on that wonderful house and have a real weekend. So I got to get back to my writing.
That's right. Thanks for taking the time, dear.
Yep.
That was wonderful. We really appreciate that.
Okay. I'll talk to you guys soon. Okay.
Talk to you later, Katherine.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening today to Ghost Talkers on theghostchannel.tv. Rest in peace.